So, we are hugely honoured that Samantha Markle has joined us today, and we are going to be talking about all things royal family.
Hello, Samantha. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. I have to wonder about the people giving him this platform and why they would allow it other than, for some quick-hitting sales buff.
It's the biggest publicity stunt for a book in the history of the universe that we've seen in the last week. But there's so much speculation, Samantha, about what Meghan is really like.
Well, I think I've been very forthcoming, too, that she is entirely different as a woman than, the young girl and the child that we knew as family members. So people like her best friend and others whom she has ghosted.
Samantha, early on you said that it was irreconcilable between you and Meghan. And when I watched the Piers Morgan thing, your dad was giving her kind of like an olive branch, really. Do you think it's irreconcilable with your dad and Meghan?
I don't know. I mean, and, I have to say there have even been times recently where it's so sad where I look at her face and I don't want her to feel hurt. And I can't believe she's the same person that's done all of these horrible things. It's hard to separate from that and not to feel wishy-washy and to waver. The bottom line is it was all subterfuge and smoke and mirrors to hide the fact that the only reason they didn't want my father at the royal wedding was to hide all of the porcupines that they had told the royal family. And I'll swear on this to a stack of Bibles.
Hello, Samantha. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having
me. No problem. So obviously you've been keeping an eye on the papers at Harry's new memoir that's been released, Spare.
Yes, I have.
I've got to ask, firstly, what do you think of it?
It's mind-boggling to me because so many of the things that I've seen that he said, and mind you, I haven't read it in entirety. I've seen excerpts. I didn't buy the book. I was refusing to buy it. But I've seen enough excerpts, as have much of the rest of the world, to form an opinion and to get this sense, in my opinion, that it seems to be a really odd left-skewed opportunity to lash out with nothing but statements that appear to be disconnected from reality, even to the extent of spewing hallucinations or what seem like hallucinations. It makes no sense at all, and I have to wonder about the people giving him this platform and why they would allow it other than, for some quick-hitting sales bucks. But clearly, there was a time when you couldn't print anything or get a publisher with material that would be construed as being salacious. And this is nothing but salacious. So it's really a head-scratcher. Yeah.
So, no, yes, it's only royal fans have noticed inconsistencies in the memoir, including what Meghan, in fact, wore on the first date. She was saying a blue dress. He was saying a jumper and a pair of jeans. How much of the new book do you think is fabricated?
I feel as though it is fabricated, and it seems as though it is strategically meant to clean up their slop from previous things that have been said, to be able to walk them back, to be able to, it seems as though it's subterfuge, and that the whole purpose of it, in my opinion, is meant to confuse and to persuade new audiences who weren't privy to other facts and information to be able to rewrite history, to be able to reframe a narrative, and to confuse those who maybe had a grip on the narrative previously. So it's word doctoring, it's spin doctoring.
It's the biggest publicity stunt for a book in the history of the universe that we've seen in the last week. But there's so much speculation, Samantha, about what Meghan is really like. So all this speculation is coming from people who don't know her. You know her. What is she really like?
Well, I think I've been very forthcoming, too, that she is entirely different as a woman than, the young girl and the child that we knew as family members. So can I say I know her as a woman? Absolutely not. But I think people like her best friend and others whom she has ghosted and done this 180 on, I think there are a lot of people now that say they don't know who she is and who she's become because it's not consistent with what we thought we knew. But I think clearly, there's an effort here to throw all of the dirt on Harry and to have the public controversy about him as smoke and mirrors for my sister's previous world observed attacks on the royals, strings of lies and other atrocities, and that she had committed in the eyes of the world. And I don't think we can forget that just because Harry says he's putting cream on his todger and he hallucinates about that while Diana was giving birth to him, she was calling out to my sister. I mean, that's a clear, so there's this weird surreal stuff going on. It's like an Andy Warhol painting coming to life.
Oh my goodness. Over to Matthew.
Well, what would I ask about first today is what did you make, Samantha, of the allegations from New Zealand Airlines?
I'm sorry, repeat the question, please.
What did you think of the allegations from New Zealand Airlines who suggested that your father, Prince Harry suggested that your father had been bought a ticket to fly New Zealand Airlines first class, and they said, well, we don't fly from Mexico and we don't do first class.
No, that was total tosh. And if you're referring to, just like them saying they had sent a car when he was already in the hospital, that was tosh. The text messages, clearly they knew how to get a hold of him, and he didn't get text messages from them until after the fact when he was in the hospital, and they were contrived. It's all smoke and mirrors to deflect from the fact that they coldly have ignored my father to cover up their own slop and deceit. And what's amazing to me about everything is that they, as poppycock, they use this false excuse of disowning him because of alleged staging paparazzi photos when he just really wanted the world to see him in his proper light because he had been horribly skewed by paparazzi. But to use that as a justification for disowning your father who's given you everything, and then to be the purveyors of fake news and photo opportunities, walking on the graves of fallen war heroes and showing up with fashion photographers. And oh my God, it doesn't get more hypocritical than that. The bottom line is it was all subterfuge and smoke and mirrors to hide the fact that the only reason they didn't want my father at the royal wedding was to hide all of the porky pies that they had told the royal family. And I'll swear on this to a stack of Bibles. It's come out now. No, everybody knows that she didn't pay for her own education. Everybody knows she never worked for the embassy. That was a lie. She got a 5-week study program paid for by my father, and our uncle threw in a letter of recommendation as a favor to my dad. All of these lies, seemingly, that she told the royals to garner false admiration and acceptance into the royal family, the only way she could keep those from coming to the surface was to seal off the hatches, keep everybody away from the wedding, because, when the champagne starts flowing at wedding receptions, people start talking. And they would be like, well, I thought you said you worked for the embassy. Oh, you only did a 5-week study program. What do you mean your dad paid for everything? I thought you said you got grants and scholarships. So to keep all of those lies from being upfront in the beginning, everybody had to be kept away. And first and foremost, my father. So this ridiculous attempt at discrediting him. Oh, we have to make him not worthy of being there. Otherwise, the world is going to scrutinize why I haven't allowed my father to come to the wedding. So let's throw dirt on him and make it falsely justifiable.
Jen.
So, Samantha, my next question is, did it come as a shock when Meghan so publicly stated in the Netflix documentary about their lives? I don't know what your middle name is, meaning yourself. You're telling these people you raised me, and that you've coined me Princess Pushy.
Okay, well, here, this is great. Let's just get this out right up front. First of all, nobody ever saw me in an interview say that I raised her or that my brother raised her. We were integral in her life until she was, about 12, a teenager, and even a little bit into high school. No, we taught her to walk because normal brothers and sisters do that when you have a baby in the house. But that doesn't equate with saying I raised her. So that was a media construct. That's Tosh. And secondly, I mean, I think to suggest that, this whole thing about saying she doesn't know my middle name. Well, I'm in her Wikipedia in the family of the Duchess. She knows my middle name. She knows enough about my life and spent enough time with me. So that's Tosh. That's a decoy. I think that is her way of trying to create a disconnect in this. And isn't it funny? She alleges that she doesn't know my middle name, but she so grandly took it upon herself to allege that I was a high school dropout and that I lost custody of all three of my kids from different men, which is all demonstrably false, not true. But so she doesn't know my middle name. She alleges, on one side of her mouth that she doesn't know me, but on the other side of her mouth, she extrapolates all of this stuff that, she says must be true. Well, gee, by your report, you're suggesting that you know me well enough to spew some really personal stuff, but it's supposed to be significant that you say you don't know my middle name. Hogwash. She knows my middle name. She knows my birth date. She knows my address. She keeps tabs on me. Nice try, Meghan. Doesn't work.
It sounds like Meghan doesn't have long-lasting relationships with people then. In that case, do you think that the marriage with Prince Harry will last?
That's the $1 million question. But I think anyone with a functioning frontal lobe would suggest, I heard that there are bookmakers taking bets on this, and the odds are definitely stacked against the marriage lasting. There's significant odds. And honestly, I think we've all seen as a world them both being compulsive liars, that there are that it appears that there are problems with substance abuse. Harry admitted that he's taking hallucinogenic chocolate-covered mushrooms, and both of them, when they speak, there's a disconnectedness from reality. So how can that be the basis, the recipe for a solid relationship? If they're both compulsive liars, how can they trust each other? And I'm sure by now Harry has realized that what was told to him about her when he first met her are stacks of porky pies. Megyn Kelly had it coined as over 100 lies, just every minute. And all of her lies have been debunked. So how can Harry trust that? And when you don't have trust in a relationship, what do you have? How can you have I don't know. Show me someone who's had a long, successful marriage based on strings of lies and mistrust and substance abuse. I would say no.
It just seems they're reveling in media attention, but there's a very shaky foundation for the relationship.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's taken him away from his family. There's been a rift there. She, jumped in seemingly like a bull in a china shop, did a lot of damage to the royal family, attacked her royal majesty, and was probably integral in the early demise of Her Majesty and Prince Philip. And how can Harry, in all good conscience, feel for her and not question and not resent what she has done to the family that he's known and demonstrated love for his entire life? When she did that curtsy, I think the world noted that he was clearly uncomfortable. His face turned red. He looked down. He didn't verbalize it, but I got the feeling that he just, if he could, he would be crawling under that couch.
Matthew's turn.
Well, I would like to say, Samantha, your sister seems to be a bit like the Scarlet Pimpernel. They seek her here, they seek her there, they seek her everywhere. Where the hell is Meghan Markle right now? She's not in Montecito because it's been evacuated. She's not in Manhattan, I don't think. So do you have any idea where your sister could be?
Oh, I don't. You know how rumors are. Some people say she's in Canada. Whether here or there, I think it seems as though she is bowing out and letting the world throw dirt on him. I think,
Would you say, Samantha, that your sister is allowing her husband to take the heat, and she's like the chef who's left the kitchen?
Yeah, but you can't, there's nothing, it's really hard to hide the elephant in the room. I mean, especially this elephant is jumping on a trampoline where it's visible in so many ways. Well,
she does seem a bit like the elephant who just jump around a bit too much, doesn't she? But do you think, what do you think her next move will be? Is it going to be her next book, or is it going to be him that does something next?
Rumor has it will be her next, but I think what is clear here is that they're both, he's slightly thrown her under the bus, that there seems to be some relief coming now. Maybe they want to spew all of their secrets, throw everybody under the bus, including themselves, and get it out so that there's nothing more. But sadly, I think, in my opinion, with a couple like this, is that they will always be perpetuating more. They'll always be creating more drama. So, you can't ever really get it all out on the table. And I think that, in my opinion, I think there is probably, a plan somewhere for divorce. There's no way. And I do have a degree as a mental health counselor. What is going on here is not the recipe for a successful, stable, loving marriage. And if anyone out there thinks that it is, please, God, feel free, show me, because I guess I would have to be clueless. I don't think it's going to last. And I think divorce will probably be on the horizon. So we wait and see, I guess.
Jen?
I mean, Samantha, you must have heard some serious lie and rubbish about your life. I've read an article earlier where Meghan claimed that you changed your surname back to Markle only after her and Harry started dating for the fame and recognition. I mean, is this another lie?
That's ridiculous. First of all, I was born Markle, and I think, like, you go through a divorce, you may keep your name for a while so that when you're at school functions and whatnot, your children don't say, "Mommy, how come you have a different name from me?" So you might keep your your married name for certain things. And my maiden name of Markle was on my bachelor's degree. Meghan was there at my graduation. So the bottom line is my name was Markle long before she met Harry. And I used then my married name for my privacy and safety after news broke of them dating. But journalists found us anyway and outed me as Markle. I was living privately in Silver Springs, Florida, under the last name of Rasmussen. But journalists found us because they know how to go through public records and find you through utilities and whatnot. They came to us. We didn't go to the media. And I had my privacy. And once everyone said, here's Samantha Markle, there were still people trying to say that my last name was Grant, even though that's never been a legal name. There's no one in our family tree by the last name of Grant. That was a pen name that protected me when I did an episode of Matlock, because I didn't want crazies knowing my real name and showing up at my house like they did Rebecca Schaefer many years ago. So I thought having a pen name is normal in many industries, whether you're a writer, whether you're an actress. It gives you some protection from the public and some privacy. But that was taken away from me because trolls and everybody outed that. So Grant was never a real name, though. But the moral of the story is women can use their name interchangeably, their maiden name, as they see fit. You don't lose it just because you get married, as is evidenced by the fact that Meghan was married to Trevor. Meghan is now married to Harry. Why is she using Markle when she's a Mountbatten Windsor? Because she feels like taking it upon herself to do so. I'm no less entitled to that right, but I've always been a Markle. It was on my college degree long before she met Harry. So who is she to say that I only changed my name because she met Harry? And here's the truth. I didn't change my name legally when she met Harry. My driver's license was still in my married name for my protection. So I didn't legally go back to Markle on my driver's license until this July, because I figured trolls already have it. The world already has it. My grandmother would be sad, and I don't want to die under that disgusting married name of Rasmussen. It's a long tongue twister. it gave me privacy for a while, but the bottom line is she lied and said I changed my name back. I didn't change my name back, but I never lost my maiden name. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So Samantha,
yeah, it's just funny to me, because it's glaring though that she's married and she's using her maiden name. She's legally at Windsor, so who is she to challenge me using or not using my maiden name?
Do you think she'll change it to Mountbatten Windsor?
I think she should. I think she's disgraced the Markle family. My grandmother would want her to lose the name because she's disowned our family, and it's just like the royal family. You want the perks, you want to disown the family, you want to trash them, but you want benefits and you want to keep a title. You want to keep Markle, even though you've totally desecrated the Markle name and disowned the Markles. It's really arrogant of her thinking that she has a copyright on names and titles after she destroys people and wants nothing to do with them. So a toast to her. I say, good on her. She should go out and either be a Mountbatten Windsor or a Ragland.
Samantha, what did you think of the Oprah Winfrey interview and Meghan saying things like that she'd never Googled the royal family?
Yeah, well, clearly it's so amazing to me that she doesn't think that highly credible people would challenge that. So whether never Googled the royal family, yet she was sitting on the wall at Buckingham when she was a teenager. And there are pictures of her, and she mysteriously knows everything about Diana and can mimic her clothing, her posturing, wore her perfume allegedly on her first date with Harry. And she, I believe, knows quite a bit about the royal family. And I find it also really arrogant that she would think that she can lie about someone like the Archbishop of Canterbury and say there was a secret wedding, which is against not only the rules of the church, but against the law. And he came out and was very forthcoming and said that never happened. So you're going to lie to the world about very credible people, which is a discredit to them. And you're going to challenge their credibility and put yourself above them and not think that you're going to be challenged. It's real. It's a disconnect from reality. It is an arrogance that is mind-boggling. And to use the Oprah interview, I think to do it with, what did it have, 50 million viewers, is crazy. And shame on Oprah for her lack of ethics and not doing her due diligence before something like that, because now most of what has been said in the Oprah interview has been debunked. And then Harry comes out and says, we never said that the royals were racist. Oh, let's use that as a cherry on the sundae.
Gonna bring Matthew in now.
Samantha, could I ask you, what do you think, given your sister's past, what do you think her next move will be? Given she has had a career as an actress, she's married into the royal family, but doesn't accept that with rights go responsibilities. What do you actually think her next move will be? Lots of people say to me, she's after power. She wants to go into politics. Do you think that's her agenda? Do you think her mother is helping her in that regard, or
no? I
somebody else?
think there's a lack of credibility. There's a lack of faith.
Oh, accidentally muted you, Samantha. Sorry. There you go.
I think there's a lacking education, credibility. The lies demonstrated on the world stage, I think speak to the lack of credibility. But not only that, I honestly, I was trying to figure out, in my opinion, what would be the best business for them. And since they're out there just, using titles that they have no business to, that the royals have asked them not to use and that really have no merit in the United States, they should start one of those businesses where, you can pay for a millimeter of land and you can buy, call it Titles R Us. I don't know. I think that would be a booming business for them. And that way, all of, the Sussex Squad members and all of their crony curmudgeon followers out there who want to believe that they are equal and that they too are royal, they can, buy their plastic tiaras that come complete with titles. And they won't feel so alone in their worthless title boat.
We can actually do that here in the UK. You can buy a square foot of land and become a lord or a lady.
Yes.
Could I interject here?
Go for it, Matthew. Yes.
Hey, what about Christopher Boozy? What do you make of Christopher Boozy and his interventions in the Netflix drama? The people, the trolling that people like him cause on other people. Given all these, the world loves to talk about Twitter trolls. I think he's one of the worst.
Well, that's a great question, and I think it's been proven if you followed Nate the lawyer, Nate Brody, who was a prosecutor and police officer, very credible. He's got receipts showing that from behind a paywall, Ellie Hall, Christopher Boozy, who has bought Sentinel, have all orchestrated showing falsely that anyone who said anything or engaged in deductive reasoning and said anything about my sister that didn't fluff her ego was socially labeled as a troll or as a hater. Well, Twitter representatives came forward, as noted in a Newsweek article, that there was no such targeted harassment campaign and cluster of accounts identified, that was false. Also, Chris Boozy is a self-proclaimed expert. It was found that 4 of his companies failed, that he worked for a small computer company, that he was not in fact an expert, and that his data that he used for those articles and for falsely labeling people as trolls, his data was not backed, it was not scientific, it was bogus. And a lot of the names even that they claimed were on a list for targeted hate campaigns and for Project Veritas, those accounts weren't even real or associated. In other words, they were fabricating data and putting it out there to try and label people like me and anyone who spoke out about my sister as a troll. And so Ellie Hall of BuzzFeed wrote a bogus article that said Samantha Markle is Meghan Markle's biggest troll. Well, that wasn't written until I announced my lawsuit. And here's the skinny on that. Refinery 29 and others all did deep research into Meghan Markle, and my name was nowhere in there in any of that research. So
this man, Christopher Boozy, he's a spreader of fake news.
Right. And he uses false data. And I don't know why Netflix would align with not do their due diligence when somebody labels themselves as an expert. He has no qualifications. He's no more of an expert than you and I are. And to make up a bunch of numbers and data and to put that into articles, I submit that that's not only misrepresentation, but that's fraud. It's defamation. It's personally and professionally injurious to those that they throw this tosh on as a label.
Did you have something to add to that, Matthew?
Well, I would like to say, this Christopher Boozy is somebody who, he wrote me a load of abuse on social media. I don't know him. I've never met the man. I don't know him, but I've seen him on the Netflix program. A fact is not a fact until you've proven it's a fact. And this is not a man who works on the basis of facts. It's the man who works on the basis of fiction. He has spread lies and nonsense about Horst Samantha amongst other people. He and the likes of Omid Scooby are simply PR peddlers for those people. They're not actually genuine in their analysis. They don't do any kind of research. I don't find, Omid Scooby is somebody who just appears on the TV every time that they want to say anything on behalf of Meghan and Harry. And it's not acceptable, I don't think, that these people are quoted as reliable sources, because they're simply not.
Yeah, exactly.
Samantha,
right.
It's Jen's turn. Sorry, go for it, Jen.
Yes, breaking the protocol there. Right. So I'm going to move on to a bit of a lighter note. The whole world met your wonderful daughter, Ashley, on the docuseries. And she seemed to be very close and almost stick up for Meghan's side of the story. How close are they in real life? And is their relationship genuine? Do they actually spend a lot of time together? Or was it all for show?
Well, I don't know what it is like now. I had hooked them up. I gave Ashley's information to my dad. She and I had reconnected because I decided I wanted my children to have a charmed life, and I didn't trust babysitters in Los Angeles when her father and I couldn't make it work. And so I had an opportunity to allow my children to be raised in the countryside, go to private schools, and that was what I felt was best for them. And if I couldn't be a part of that, because I had to work and I couldn't afford it, so be it. And so anyone who would judge me on that would have to be a pretty evil person. I loved my daughter. I still do. I always will, even though we are not BFFs and we've grown apart. We started to reconnect, and I wanted her to have a great relationship with my sister because they're close in age. They're only 4 years apart. So that being said, I could not foresee, though, that at the beginning of all the royal hoopla that she would be caught up in the fake news and the media swell that said, oh, that Samantha's a horrible jealous hag, she's horrible. I think that influenced my daughter falsely against me, and I think my sister manipulated that, and my daughter believed it erroneously. So it's kind of sad. um, but in the Netflix interview, she didn't look happy, she didn't look convinced about what she was saying, and I felt perhaps that there was some undue influence there. And if she chooses the relationship with my sister over a relationship with me, she's an adult. I want her to be happy, then so be it. But I think there's an error in that judgment, and I hope she comes around to see it. I don't know if they're still communicating. I heard that that was filmed in August. So a lot might have changed, especially when she realized that she had been lied to. The media and researchers are very clear about the fact that even Neil Sean brought it out that it was not the palace that said she couldn't go to the royal wedding, as my sister lied to her and apparently told her. It was my sister's decision. So my sister was pawning and lying to my daughter to hurt her and make her feel like I was the reason she couldn't go to the wedding. That was a lie. That was not true. And that's been debunked. So I'm sure that Ashley realizes that now and probably has had words with my sister about it or not. I don't know what their relationship is like right now, but I'm sure she must know that she has been played.
I'm curious about the media hoopla, Samantha. When the public became aware and the media became aware of Harry and Meghan's relationship, how did your and your family's lives change?
It was, believe it or not, everyone thought, oh, those Marcos are just glomming on. They want the fame and the notoriety. No, it was very uncomfortable. Like I said, I was living privately in Silver Springs, and the media found us. And immediately, we didn't know at that time that there was an entrenched media agenda and that stories were being written to discredit us, to create a separation, I believe, because my sister wanted to keep everyone away from the wedding. So that being said, we were in a whirlwind going, what? Where are all these articles coming from? They're saying my dad's a deadbeat dad and I'm a jealous hag and we have no relationship. And she was never grew up in our household. Like there was a clear separation right away to discredit everyone. So our lives changed because we became unjustly stigmatized right out of the gate. When in the very beginning, we just wanted to support her. I think my first interview, we were trying to be positive to make her feel supported, but we didn't know that she had another agenda, that there was this thing going on of, oh my God, I've told all these porcupines, I have to discredit everyone and keep them away. So we didn't know that. And I found out from an attorney in London at Bar Dogs that there was an entrenched media agenda against me. I was never on a fixated persons list. That article went around the world. And I couldn't for the life of me. I had just cleared a pretty heavy duty background check. I'm a mental health counselor. So I thought, wow, people are making me out to look like Patricia Hearst. And I'm not trolling my sister. I don't tweet at her. I don't know her whereabouts. I'm not a fixated stalker. Other than journalists asking me questions, I don't really get involved in what she does or where she goes. Everybody else, trolls and people on social media, know more about her daily goings on than I do. So I found out from an attorney in London that I was never on a fixated persons list. How would that make you feel if someone did that to you? That there was no Scotland Yard Met Police gave this attorney a letter. I was not in their computer. There was no such list. I was never on it, never would be.
Well, it's very interesting you talk, Samantha, about Patty Hearst, because I've met Patty Hearst. I've spent time with her in California, in San Francisco. The Stockholm syndrome and all of that.
Yeah.
Do you think that Prince Harry perhaps has been a bit Stockholm syndromed by your sister?
Well, as a degreed counselor, I know, I can tell you. I mean, how would you feel as a man to know that you had given up your family, burned all your bridges, you were manipulated into leaving your own country, you were kind of trapped in between a rock and a hard place. You know, if you are a dissenter, that life would be hell in California because you have nowhere to go, but you can't go back to your family. So at times, you have to make the best of the situation and maybe even feel that you love your quote captor. You know, that's part of what happens in Stockholm syndrome, is that they start to believe the captor's suggesting that, oh, they didn't love you, your life was terrible there, it's better here with me, kind of.
I think that you and you sum it up very well. Having met Patty Hearst, spent time with her and her bodyguards, and who became her husband, I think there's a similarity going on there. Would you agree about that?
Yeah, and Candace Owens pointed it out too. I mean, the whole world feels that there was manipulation there, on the grounds that Harry himself even said once, I didn't know how unhappy I was until she told me. Well, there's coaching right there. Bingo.
Jen?
I totally agree with you.
Yes. Yeah. No, the next question. On the documentary and series and other interviews I've seen, Meghan almost darkens your side of the family and paints her mother Doria in an angelic light. What is the actual truth behind that?
The actual truth is it's just the opposite. If you look at her own TIG blog that she had, the praise was all about my dad. If you Google the UN speech, the world needs more men like my dad in the world. My dad, this, he taught me to draw my own box. Everything was, my dad is amazing. Dad, who paid for all of her education from the first day in kindergarten to the last day at Northwestern University. Built every stage she danced on, was at every recital, dropped her off, picked her up from school, raised her, bought her clothes, paid for her apartments, paid for her fun money, paid for everything she wanted. Everything was dad, the consummate father. And so I feel after this attempt at keeping both sides of the family away, not just the Markles, because the truths would come out about holidays, family events, and the stories, that, there was this push to throw dirt on dad and exclude him and play the matriarchy card to falsely impress Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth, and to, she couldn't have no one. There had to be someone at the wedding, so it's glom on to mom. But she wasn't talking about mom in the TIG or in her UN speech or all of her life. Why only at the wedding is it suddenly my mom is a beacon in my window, in my life, in my dark sky? No. It's because you need someone to grab onto as a trophy to make it look, you have some family, and to help hide the porcupines.
And she said that her mum was the only one who gave a dignified response.
Well, her mother, it's also been publicly noted that her mother gets millions of dollars a year as an allowance. Of course, that's a conflict of interest. And I would submit that, like other things that are behind a paywall, including the Chris Boozies and everyone else and other PR, that in my opinion, her mother's an extension of PR or a PR pawn, because she's never publicly bragged about her mother or given her accolades about anything. And if she was so wonderful, evidence of those accolades and that appreciation would be there.
I watched a heart-rending interview with Meghan's dad on Piers Morgan, I think it was, and it just got me wondering, why did her relationship with him break down in the first place?
I'm sorry, repeat that. You broke.
I watched a heart-rending interview on Piers Morgan with Meghan's dad, and it got me wondering, why did their relationship break down in the first place?
Well, our dad has always been the consummate dad for her. The relationship didn't break down. When he said that he felt she changed when she got to the Soho house, it didn't break down because if you remember, he was the first one she called to say, "Daddy, I met a prince."
Mhm.
Was very much in touch with him. It didn't break down, but from my father's perspective, he felt a change in her personality when she was in Canada and started getting involved in the Soho Club. And maybe that's because there were things she was doing that she didn't want daddy to know about. There's been a lot coming out about that that's questionable, and young women don't tell their fathers everything. So clearly, if she was enjoying fame and a social life, she's not going to tell him, confide in him as much, especially where dating life and other things come into play. But in his mind, the Soho house changed her because, she was loving him, accolades all the way up through being married when she was married to Trevor and all the way up through her graduation at Northwestern. It was always daddy, daddy, daddy. But suddenly after the Soho house, and then certainly when she met Harry, even though he was the first person she called to say, "Daddy, I met a prince," probably the revelation was, "Oh my God, I told the royals all these porcupines, and if my dad comes to the wedding, I'm done for." So suddenly it became, "Oh, he's not worthy. Oh, he staged paparazzi photos. Oh, there's a rift. Oh, we didn't really get along." And then, oddly, her PR started floating around this stupid video of her riding around in her car in Hollywood saying, "Look, my dad lives up there, but we're not exactly getting along now," as if it's some false evidence of that they didn't get along even when she was a teenager. Tosh, what she didn't tell people when she was being so, quote, snotty in that video was that she had demanded that my father quit a production that he was working on her behalf, Damn Yankees, I believe it was, because she was in a tiff with a woman named Gigi Perot. And because my dad wouldn't walk off the production, she iced him. "If you're not going to comply, then you may as well die. I'm not having anything to do with my dad who lives up there right now. But I'm not going to tell the world that it's because I have a snotty attitude and I demanded that he quit the production. And because he didn't comply, I'm disowning him. I'm going to make it look like we're not getting along because of some character flaw in my dad." No, that's not who has the character flaw. So, there's another side to that story.
And have you found that very painful?
I found it really painful for my father because, blood, sweat, and tears and pouring your heart and soul into a child who turns on you seemingly only out of greed and out of covering lies and deceit there are not enough words for that. And it's so undeserving. And he could not have foreseen that. But then, a parent can't foresee that a child is going to become noted by many health professionals around the world as a malignant narcissist. And there's DSM criteria for that she seems to meet. And I don't think he would have expected that and didn't know what he was dealing with. You can't foresee that you totally love a child and give them everything, and then they're going to flip like night and day and suddenly disown you because of some really selfish need to hide something or manipulate something or get some financial or political gain, and that suddenly the parent becomes non-existent. That's just, that's heartbreaking. It's like pulling your heart out of your chest.
But do you not believe it's the media and the tabloids?
Can I interject and ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
Jen is hijacking the interview again, like she did with Robbie Williams.
I pointed out 3 moments.
I did come here to try and ask some questions, but I would like to ask a question about Ngozi Fulani, i.e. Mrs. Marlene.
Yes.
Yes. What did you think of Marlene?
I had heard that through the grapevine that Space, her organization, was related and had dealings with my sister and the Sussex Squad. And that being said, for the life of me, I looked at the whole thing as it unfolded, and I had said, if somebody is standing in front of my house wearing a Dutch outfit with wooden shoes, I am naturally going to ask, "Where are you from?" Because what they are wearing is culturally symbolic. It is not indigenous to an area, just like symbolic cultural clothing from Africa or some other, Zimbabwe is not customary in Great Britain. And because it's a costume, you might say, where are you from? Or you could say, why are you wearing that costume? But I think most people would say, where are you from?
Could I ask you what you think about Lady Susan Hussey, Lady Hussey?
I think that she should have been exonerated because naturally her job, I heard, was to ask people where they're from. And I feel I respectfully would have asked somebody that question out of curiosity and maybe wanting to share and celebrate their culture. Like, where are you from? Oh, you're from Holland. I love Holland. Well, I love your shoes, and I've always wanted wooden Dutch shoes. It's a way of starting conversation. It's a way of making a new friend.
Have you seen, Samantha, the video of Lady of Ngozi Fulani Marlene, whatever she's called, when she parades around in different clothes? And
yes, I saw that.
Is she really a genuine person in that regard?
When we wake up in the morning, we get out of bed and we start our day with Coro Snacks. Coro is a healthy snacks brand focusing on bringing additive-free, natural ingredients to their customers with fair prices in bulk packaging. They have everything from nut butters to free from baking ingredients to cooking essentials and, of course, the snacks. And the energy balls are delicious.
They're my favourite, the salted pistachio.
Ooh.
Can't wait to have this morning.
Let's see what this one tastes like.
Cheers.
Cheers. So what makes Coro special in comparison to others? Their bulk packaging allow them to offer their customers high quality products at a fair price. For a 5% discount on Coro's products, use the code TRUECRIME with no space in between true and crime. The link to Coro's online shop is in the description box on YouTube. Thanks for supporting our sponsor.
No, I saw that footage and I thought, that little scam artist. She's here saying, don't always wear these clothes, which suggests staging and baiting. And I believe she set the whole situation up to create a race war, to throw mud on the royal family, who, as we all know very well, have been nothing but lovely and multicultural. And,
do you think that Lady Susan Hussey was actually a kind-hearted elderly lady who didn't mean to upset anybody? As everybody I've ever spoken to has always said, this lady is someone who never intended to cause any offense, and yet Prince Harry has chosen, at the time of launching his profit peddling book, chosen to attack her.
Yeah, I think that was definitely false. I think, in my opinion, Harry has an attribution error problem and is seemingly lashing it out at everybody to start fires in other places to take the heat off of himself for the rifts that he's caused, the attacks that he's launched, and his own refusal to be accountable or competent as a man. She was lovely. She was absolutely respectful. And as what I know as a degreed counselor from multicultural counseling, you never assume things about people. It is respectful to ask questions and to find out what the person will tolerate or won't, or what their feelings are. It is respectful to ask about a costume or wardrobe that is not customary, rather than to draw assumptions. It is stereotyping by drawing assumptions. So conversely, it is respectful to ask. And that she was publicly flogged for asking, I think, is a damn disgrace. And whoever did that whole thing was race baiting to throw dirt on the royal family and to throw dirt on Lady Hussey, who I heard had also at one point been asked by the Queen to interact with my sister. And when Lady Hussey allegedly reported back that my sister was difficult, this seems to be a little bit of revenge.
But would you not say that Lady Susan Hussey was a decent lady who had worked for the royal family for many, 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 many years? I spoke to a lady this evening in the local bar in the local town where I live, and she said, I think that Lady Susan was treated appallingly.
Yes.
Lady Susan did nothing wrong. Lady Hussey, correct
No, from
she's been treated appallingly.
Yeah, from across the pond. I watched that as a multicultural counselor and as a woman. I would have done the same thing out of respect and sincere interest in the person to whom I'm speaking and asking where you're from. It to me, it feels the respectful, right thing to do, out of interest and respect to a person. And I applauded Lady Hussey for the way she handled it. But there was clearly an agenda, as evidenced by Ms. Fulani saying, and that's a fake name too, by the way, Marlene Headley, saying that she doesn't always wear those clothes. I believe she went there with the
Sorry,
goal.
may I interject here? Her name is Marlene.
Marlene Headley, yes.
Yes, her name is Marlene. You know, like the Only Fools and Horses episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, it's Jen's turn to ask a question.
Oh, Matthew was doing so well then. No, seeing as you've seen firsthand how manipulative and twisted the media can be, do you believe the media are not being a little cruel to Meghan and Harry?
I don't think they're being cruel to Meghan and Harry now because, you know, the world has to remember too, for the longest time through Sunshine Sachs and Sarah Latham, Harry and Meghan were paying to largely control a lot of the media. And that's what a lot of people don't know. Pricey PR firms have a monopoly on 9 or 10 magazine publications and news outlets, as well as television shows. And so only when they had engaged in so much, quote, foul play, I will say, in my opinion, and the world observed so many lies, so much deceit, attacking the royal family, there weren't enough PR firm. The PR firm couldn't keep on top of it and started to back off. And then many of them realizing what these two have been doing on Continuum and unrelenting attacks on the royal family and the lies. Yeah, then the media said, you know what, screw this. We're not engaging in this PR to cover your little butts anymore because you are just devious and you're lying. And we're going to start telling the truth. I think everybody had had enough. I don't think they're being harsh to point out that the emperor is not wearing any clothing. Enough is enough. We're not puffing your image anymore. We're not lying. You can't pay us enough to do that at this point because we see you for what you really are. And telling the truth does not make you racist. It does not make you a troll. It doesn't make you a hater. It means you're saying, you know what? You guys are the problem. You are doing this to everyone. You need to be accountable. You need to apologize. And you're not going to get away with this and have it be cool and eclectic in the media. It's just a lie, and the lies have to stop.
Samantha, earlier you mentioned that Meghan was showing the traits of a malignant narcissist. Could you explain what a malignant narcissist is to the layperson and what those traits would be?
A malignant narcissist, I mean, I think you can look it up. I think it takes a qualified mental health expert to make this assessment. But seemingly, you know, they're not connected with reality. Everything for them is a lie. They gaslight, belittle, and manipulate people who don't accept their lies. And they spin it in such a way that everybody else is the bad guy for pointing out their lies. And their whole thing is about manipulation and control. And I mean, I think it's really deeply rooted in insecurity. There have been people who have said that, you know, her ego is out of this world. I think it's more, in my opinion, with her, it seems to stem from a lot of insecurity. And it's a compensation. It's a coping strategy. But the problem, there is an organic basis for it. And most malignant narcissists get worse with time. They believe their own lies. It, you know, can become a form of serious dementia. And therefore, I'm just going to take a step back and say, based on all of the disconnectedness from reality, the manipulation, the lies, I would suggest that she be assessed by a mental health expert because, you know, Harry seems to be mirroring a lot of that. There are clear substance abuse issues in the relationship, and they have 2 small children who cannot communicate for themselves and navigate and defend themselves in this world. And they're picking up cues about their own identity and how to interact with others, with their parents as primary agents of socialization, sending all the wrong messages and engaging in what I believe are behaviors that are deleterious to themselves and the children, in my opinion. So it's malignant narcissism is very serious. Dr. Carol Malone, and others have come forward. They are qualified health professionals. They've basically spit it out and labeled her as a malignant narcissist. And I don't think they're offbeat. I think, for anyone to say, oh, they're just harassing Meghan, oh, they're just in denial because they're racist. No, these are behaviors that are consistent with the DSM criteria, and she's displaying them. So it's not, I don't think it's just subject to interpretation. I think it's very serious. The behaviors have gotten worse on Continuum. To sit there and one of the first things that shocked me, yes, the lies about our family, but when she sat there and lied about the Archbishop of Canterbury, and then Harry sat there and smiled and went along with it and didn't have the quote bollocks to say, no, that didn't happen. I thought, wow, there's a codependency here. He's mirroring her. He's afraid to speak out, but he's becoming a lot like her. And that happens too in those relationships. So I think it's taken a lot of time to develop these behaviors, and it's going to take a lot of time to unravel them and to treat them. And I don't know what the solution is for the royal family, but I think it all has to be considered.
Well, you said the root of that is insecurity, and Meghan comes across as such a confident woman. Where does that insecurity come from then?
Who's to say? I mean, I'm kind of feeling as though, she was well liked in school. She was pretty. She started to do very well in her professional life. So I don't know. Maybe she wanted to be, as teenagers and young women, we want to be more of something. We want to be more blonde. We want to be skinnier. We want to be, and for some people, and it's not just women, men have insecurities too, but it seems to be exaggerated in her case and overly compensated for by wanting to feel falsely empowered. And to that, I can say that I feel she sent a lot of the wrong messages out to young women around the world. Empowered women don't need men to advance themselves. Empowered women don't pretend to be something they're not. Empowered women don't lie about their education and not getting grants and scholarships when dad paid it. They're comfortable paying accolades to others. Empowered women don't lie and say they worked for the embassy when they didn't. So if you're truly empowered, you're confident in being honest about who you are and being present in the moment. So the insecurity is demonstrated by the lies, wanting to be something that you're not. And that's an admission of a sense of personal inadequacy. I don't feel good enough, so I'm going to tell everybody I'm this instead of who I really am.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And although there is a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of lies and stories have been told involving the media and tabloids, do you feel there is ever a chance of reconciliation?
With who?
Meghan.
Between Meghan and who?
Yourself.
No, I don't, because if someone, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want a friendship with someone who lies on Continuum in such a vicious manner, and moreover, who behind closed doors would pay to destroy me or damage me. That was totally uncalled for. I would never trust a relationship or friendship like that. And I think you can compare apples to oranges. Look at what's been said about me in PR, and even her dodgy attempts in Finding Freedom. But I didn't badmouth her in my book. I wouldn't do that. I was talking about serious accounts. I complimented her in parts, and I was talking about real situations. But I didn't use a book as an opportunity to defame or to hurt or to do damage, whereas that's not the case with her. So no, I would never want a friendship with her or a relationship.
I think Matthew's trying to come in here.
Yeah.
Matthew?
It would be nice if I were allowed to speak, you know. That would be
Jen hijacked your spot there again.
I don't know whether Matthew's aware. I can see you on 4 screens.
I did introduce this person to your audience, so it would be nice if I could actually be not unmuted all the time.
Come on, Matthew, get your question out.
So I would like to ask about the blog, the TIG.
Okay.
What do you think of Samantha of the TIG? Is your sister, is she into booze as much as Prince Harry is into drugs?
Well, the TIG, but she had, I think, a lovely focus on travel and lifestyle, food and trade, and all things enjoying the high life. But what again was glaring for me was her praise of our father, and when she talks about racism and skin color, and she talks about becoming a woman and empowerment, the one thing she has said that was true was that our father taught her to draw her own box. And it wasn't that he was embarrassed about her skin color. It's that he wanted her to be empowered. You don't let people define you. If you want to put white in the box, put white. If you want to put black, put black. If you want to draw your own box and say biracial, you do that, because it's up to you to define who you are, not someone else. And so that being said, why isn't she reflecting on that now and giving him action?
She used the TIG, being Tignello,
Right.
being an
Right.
expensive wine as just a
Right.
thing, or is your sister just pretentious, or is she just stupid?
I don't think that's pretentious. I think, when we're young adults and we have the opportunity to travel, we come across wines and foods that we love. And, she was interacting with chefs and people who had exquisite taste. And I think that's lovely. And you don't have to be rich to appreciate or experience those things. And if she wanted to promote them socially, then good on her. I mean, Oprah did kind of the same thing with her magazine. Oh, Martha Stewart did it. And it also gives people who maybe don't have money.
Poor people can't buy Tignello at Tesco. So is that a relevant thing?
Well, that's like when Oprah did her favorite things. You might not be able to afford that, but you can find substitutes or learn about something and find, inexpensive places to buy them. But if you're interested in wines, then you can add one more to your list to try sometime, or to find wines that are similar or in their description. Are they more fruity or floral, a big finish, a smooth finish? You expand your palate by reading about other wines. And so I don't fault her for doing that. It was offering a glimpse at a lifestyle that maybe many couldn't access, and maybe because of the TIG they could.
You unmuted me, but it's called the TIG, the blog.
Yes.
So she had a blog called the TIG, and she went on about wine. Was she a bit snotty when you knew her, before you didn't know her anymore, or was she actually a nice person?
No, even as I had mentioned, the last time I spoke to her was 2015. It was Christmas, and we had spoken when she was in Canada. We had spoken. It was nice to catch up, but we had spoken, of course, when she was married to Trevor. We had spoken as adult women and shared bits of our lives and experiences and things that we liked. I didn't think she was snobby. I thought she's a young woman. She's social referencing. She's going out into the world and solidifying her identity and things that she likes. And she'll, it's like, ducklings learning to fly. That's just what you do. And I wouldn't fault any young adult for doing that. It's and liking nice things in life. I'm not wealthy, but I like many of those things. It's not snobby to like things that are wonderful, that are, pleasing to the senses, that are beautiful when you see them in stores, or tasty to the palate. So the TIG was also, it had beautiful recipes in it, and it allowed people to explore a little bit of the world. And she had interviews in there with celebrities. It wasn't just about wine, even though wine and drinks were mentioned. They were an accompaniment to a meal. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with the TIG. I rather liked it.
All right, Matthew's had 5 questions in a row. It's Jen's turn.
Yeah. So you just mentioned you were speaking with Meghan when she was in a last relationship with Trevor. Obviously that's correct. I mean, how was their relationship? Was it as chaotic as her current?
I'm sorry, as chaotic as
her current relationship with Harry, always in the media?
I wouldn't say it was as chaotic, and it's a distinctly different relationship, even though, I think we all kind of felt like Trevor was Hollywood royalty, such a gentleman, such a nice man, so refined, and he loved her above and beyond in sickness and in health, and showed her the world. And just the ultimate gentleman and Prince Charming in his own right. When it became allegedly chaotic, sources had said, and we noticed as a family, that her travel and her being on Suits and her schedule and him being in Los Angeles caused some strain on the relationship, allegedly, and that is normative under the circumstances. So whoever it was that felt the need to wander from the relationship first, and what their decision was to divorce, we only know from what she has said, and we've heard about her mailing the rings back. Everybody heard that. But naturally, a long distance relationship in many cases cannot survive. And can we really fault either one of them more than the other? I can't say that we can. And it's sad that it happened, but I don't think it's chaotic. And if it was chaotic, it was chaotic in very different ways that this relationship is.
Samantha, early on you said that it was irreconcilable between you and Meghan. And when I watched the Piers Morgan thing, your dad was giving her kind of like an olive branch, really. Do you think it's irreconcilable with your dad and Meghan?
I don't know. I mean, and, I have to say there have even been times recently where it's so sad, where I look at her face and I don't want her to feel hurt. And I can't believe she's the same person that's done all of these horrible things. It's hard to separate from that and not to feel wishy-washy and to waver, because you look at someone that you loved and you always see that face and that person. So there's a little part of all of us that thinks that magically perhaps that she would be willing to accept an olive branch. We've extended it a bazillion times. We've in interviews, we've spoken out. We've tried, but she was not receptive. And continually, it's not just about accepting an olive branch. It's about purposely attacking in response on continuum with paid PR and the cold disregard. So, if it was only about not accepting an olive branch, that would be simple, because you don't want to control somebody. Fine. If you don't want to be a part of the family, fine, but don't be out there attacking us with your multi-million-dollar PR, writing these horrid stories. And the cold disregard when she sees her father in an interview and he's saying that he loves her and just wants communication, and he's ignored and ignored and ignored as stories are being written to defame everybody. That is from behind a paywall. So that's like, if it was, I'll reach out. Don't stab me while I'm extending the olive branch. But as you're constantly being stabbed with the olive branch in your hand, there's a glaring difference in the MO and the behaviors of everyone involved. So I don't think, I can't speak for my father, but after 2 heart attacks and a stroke, and the continued cold disregard and stripping of his integrity and the lie upon lie upon lie regarding that, just to cover what seems to be deceit and lies, I think is disgusting. It's not only character assassination, but it's flatlining your father, who's an amazing man and gave you everything, because you're greedy, because you're deceitful and you're corrupt. You want to hurt other people to keep not, fine, skip off into the sunset, but don't be attacking people while you're doing it.
Yeah, it's really sad. Let's see if Matthew's got something. Matthew, you coming in? Matthew.
Hello, yes, I'm still here. Yes, well, what do you think that Meghan will do next? Will Meghan become a politician?
The not prime minister,
President of America,
of the United States.
Well, I would equate that with in 1984, Bozo of Bozo's Circus ran for president. I remember being in Westwood, California, when he was going through in his motor vehicle waving at the crowd. I think it would be as funny as if Bozo ran.
So do you believe it's the media or her relationship with Harry that's caused us to do these horrible things, or is it just greed?
I don't believe it's the media, on the grounds that both of them were controlling the media for a long time. And the media was fluffing them and writing dirt stories about everyone else that, was interviewed and spoke out about her or said anything as a basis for discrediting everybody. They were in control of the media. So to whine and say, oh, we're victims of the media. No, you're the purveyors of fake news. You paid to destroy other people. If you feel like you're the only victims now, it's because they're not covering your ascot. The victim thing doesn't work. That's like the juvenile delinquent who sets the high school on fire and then blames the principal and demands an apology from the principal. Oh, I'm a victim because I was at your high school. No, you caught the high school on fire. You're not the victim.
I think Matthew's coming in.
We like your description.
Yes.
I like your description, and in the future, here we are. You and I, we've always been in touch, haven't we?
Yes, thank you so much, Matthew. It's an honor. You are.
And it's nice to be in touch with these other people who are doing these shows. But you and I, we've become good friends, haven't we?
It's been an honor, and delightfully so. I thank you. Yes.
So how did you guys come to meet? Just get to know each other. Twitter.
Yes,
yeah,
on Twitter.
The power of Twitter.
Yes, we started speaking. I mean, I love his articles, his candor. He's very comprehensive, and
Times is a good thing.
Yes, it is. It is, absolutely. I think Steeple Times is wonderful and should be expanded.
Definitely. We would love to have more support. So please spread the message of support for the Steeple Times.
Absolutely.
We will.
I heard a rumor
Samantha
of
Markle.
a Uber driver on the route to the studio. Are you and your brother starting a podcast?
Oh dear, I knew somebody was going to get me. Not a podcast. He wants to do a documentary, but respectfully, I felt like I was a little bit sabotaged as I was doing an interview with GB News, and he jumped in and threw that out there, and I hadn't heard of it. So I felt like it was an awkward time to mention it. I think the idea is good, but there is not yet a contract or a solid package on the table for it. So that announcement, in my opinion, was a little bit premature. Yet I applaud his idea for wanting to do that, and we'll see what happens with it. I just, it's not a done deal yet. I'll put it that way.
You're very charismatic. I think you'd be brilliant.
Well, I think, I think it would be interesting for many to see extensively from our side and what our lives are like as a result of all this and what really has been going on. So, moving forward, we may get it done. But I can't commit to the people that he's working with. So apparently he has a couple of producers interested, but I haven't seen anything on paper yet.
Do you have other goals going forward, Samantha? What's your mission?
Well, I'm not. Well, that's. I mean, that's a loaded question. We all have a lot of missions. In what area of my life are you referring?
Just in general, though, like our mission on our channel is to just get people on to tell their stories, and we give kids life lessons, and we help people, build their platforms and stuff like that. Do you have any kind of mission?
I do. I mean, I think one of the things I think we've seen come out of this year in terms of misinformation and in terms of the power of digital media, whether it's political or whether it's social or for entertainment, I think clearly there has to be a fine line between entertainment and sensationalism and truth or news. And I think, although I'm not knocking tabloid entertainment or news that's not entirely factual, because
hope you're enjoying this podcast. There's a word from our sponsor, Rocket Money. The other day I had to cancel 3 Amazon Prime memberships. I had a personal on the UK Amazon, US Amazon, company account, US Amazon, UK Amazon. Do you understand how hard it is to cancel these bloody things? That's why Rocket Money makes these things so much easier, formerly known as Truebill. The app shows all your subscriptions in one place and cancels what you don't want for you. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you didn't know you were paying for. Just like with me, with my 4 Amazon Prime memberships, you may find out you've been at least double charged for a subscription. To cancel a subscription, all you've got to do is press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Get rid of useless subscriptions with Rocket Money now. Go to rocketmoney.com/Sean, SHAUN. Seriously, it could save you hundreds per year. That's rocketmoney.com/Sean, SHAUN. Thank you for supporting our sponsor, Rocket Money. Links in the description box. Cheers.
Inquiring minds, readers, viewers also have a moral obligation to do their due diligence and learn about what they're reading, learn about samples, learn about where the facts come from, and look at evidence and compare and contrast. One of the things I hope that changes, and I'd like to be a part of, is getting back to some ethical standards. If something's not true, it should be labeled in small print at the bottom. This is for entertainment purposes only. Or and certainly with regards to ethical standards, there has to be a fine line between sensationalistic reporting for entertainment and defamation. If you're saying someone's a rapist, you better be able to prove it. If you're saying someone is a horrible this or that, you better be able to prove it. And I think a lot of the media know that most people can't sue everybody. But aside from the litigational aspect of it, we have to get back to real news, factual news, and a separation between entertainment and news. And they've become so heavily merged because of digital technology.
Yeah, and if you've got enough followers, if you've got millions of followers, whatever you say becomes the truth.
Well, exactly. I think and I learned this the hard way with the fake fixated persons list. There's something known as aggregate news. And when somebody writes a story, publications around the world, they're too busy to each do their own due diligence. So it's like the old days of rip and read news. And I used to work in news. I'd go in and write my stories. I'd pull it off the AP. I'd chop it around, mix it up, and get on the air and report it. But now with digital technology, you get a story out there and everybody regurgitates it. They might put one little word on it as a spin. They might put stuff in quotes that's not really in quotes. And everybody believes the bold font headlines without looking for evidence and checking other sources. People are too busy in their fleeting lives to stop and look at that. So if they read something, oh my God, this person's a rapist. And then suddenly that person is labeled 10 people tell 10 people. Write the same.
You are a great person of someone who corrects facts.
Agreed.
Well, I mean, I try. I'm not perfect. I'm like you or every other writer. I find myself having to go back and forth and other sources the same thing, because I too have been guilty of reading something and going, oh my God, without really having all of the facts. And bold font heads in digital media, print or in cyberspace, are very powerful. They really are. I think can do a lot of damage if they're inaccurate at all, or if they omit, facts, or if they include obsolete
Samantha,
facts.
I would like to say you are a brilliant person, and you are someone who tells the truth. And truth is a very important thing in this story. And it is time that we all heard the truth.
Well, there's, at the end of the day, when we look in the mirror, I think it's important that we know we've been honest with ourselves and with others. And certainly, if you believe in God, I believe we're always being watched. But I'll put it like this, people have said, oh, Samantha is lying. Samantha's just mad at her sister. No, I told everyone from the beginning, I will tell you the truth, even if it makes me unpopular, even if you hate me. And the world hated me. Everybody hated me. Oh, Samantha, she's horrible. And then it was really refreshing to see Tom Bauer on, with Dan Moon say, you know what? We all laughed at Samantha and she was right. She was telling the truth. I mean, so what if everybody for telling
Did you enjoy Tom Bauer's book?
You know what? I adore Tom Bauer, and I have to apologize. I haven't had time to read it in entirety yet, so I'm working on it. So I can't, I adore him, although I feel chronologically he jumped around a little bit. I think it has value, and appreciating it, and we'll read it and speak to him. And I mean, I'm really grateful. He took a lot of time doing all of that research. Much of what he has said publicly and in the book so far that I've seen is true. Although I never listened. This is the one thing. Tom Bauer, don't hate me for this. I'm not picking you, I should say. I've never listened to goth music in my life. I used to listen to the Go-Go's, and I had a Diana haircut. So wherever he got, someone told Samantha was goth in high school. No, I wasn't. Goth, I think, came around later, and the Go-Go's are not considered goth.
May I ask you, what did you think of the book by other people, the other people's books?
Well, I will say of everyone, many of whom I adore, including Lady Colin Campbell. I think
Lady Colin Campbell in particular. I don't know her. I've never met her. I've never met her myself. So.
No, I love her, but it's clear that these books were written before people had all the facts on the table. They didn't even know that when I was in high school, I was disability after I got out of a rope swing. So, someone said that I was too partying to be integral in the family. Well, I was only 17. I wasn't partying yet. And I was dealing with disability, but the world didn't know that. So they got fragments of statements and information from people like my brother, who was kind of bitter at the time and still, wanting Harry to invite him to his bachelor party and still sucking up a little bit. And these fragments of information that went to Andrew Morton and to other people got put into books. But now the world sees the realities that were hidden at the time by PR and by not interviewing enough and having full facts on the table. And that's okay. That's understandable. But there was, still in the early days when many of these books were, there was still this social opiate. Everybody was, well, not everybody, but many were still high on my sister because the Porcupines had not come out yet. People like Piers Morgan were calling me a vulture, and not yet.
What do you think of Piers Morgan?
I adore Piers Morgan too. Unfortunately, he had to find a hard way and go some bumps and grinds along the way, and it didn't take him long to be saying the same things that I was saying and seeing that they were the truth. People don't know until they have personal experience with certain things. And so that being said, I think clearly now his attitude has changed from when he was saying, Samantha, you little vulture. I don't think he feels that way now. And it's okay. It's part of growing. So.
Samantha, I've got to ask how the sales are going on the book.
Well, my book, I ended up having a bad situation. Someone hijacked my book and was selling it illegally on Amazon. So I'm having to play tag and find out who did that with that ISBN number. I didn't go with, I went through a hybrid publisher, not a proper publisher. So I'm going to repackage it and include book number 2 with book number 1 for a larger book, rewritten so that it's literarily sound and comprehensive. But yeah, that it did seemingly well for a couple of weeks, but someone was pirating my book and uploading it for free on the internet, and then also printing copies and selling it all over the internet. So it's important this time that I go through a proper publisher who has a large legal powerhouse to go after people who engage in piracy and plagiarism.
Does that mean your books aren't available now then?
No, they're being sold as used. If you find new copies anywhere and you can put 100 in your cart, that's fraud. I would say report it because there were not suppliers, and Amazon didn't order thousands of books and leave them sitting in a warehouse. So people were printing them out the back door, I believe. But there are used copies out there that after people read the book that they're selling on eBay or, through smaller booksellers. That's perfectly fine. But I don't have a current version of my book for sale anywhere.
Do you have social media presence that our viewers can follow you on?
I am on Twitter and I am on Instagram. I think Would
it possible that I could ask a question?
Your turn, Matthew. Get in there.
Yes, it's time that I need to ask a question. What does Mrs. Markle sister think of the TIG, the blog?
What do I think of the TIG blog?
The blog. Do you know? Was that why did she create a blog to begin? It's very odd that she creates something like that. A thing about wine, and she whined on about wine. And don't you think that's a very odd thing?
No, I think it's lovely that she did that. I enjoyed it, and she was traveling and seeing some minor things in life, and I think it was cool that she did that with women everywhere. I mean, many of the items in there are not affordable, but Oprah did the same thing with her favorite things, and she would give members of her audience really pricey gift baskets of things that most women couldn't afford. But it was a way of showing and sharing a lifestyle, and it could, of course, increase sales for those advertisers. Nothing wrong with that. But no, I thought the TIG was quite nice. I thought it was beautifully done. So
Samantha, you've been really generous with your time. Is there anything you'd like?
Can I ask one last question?
Yeah, go for it.
I've got to ask, in your opinion, do you think Harry and William will ever make up and be buddies again after Harry allegedly assaulted Harry?
Wow. Well, there's so much from this side of the pond. It's my observation that, especially with regards to the passing of Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth and all of the attacks on the royal family and the mudslinging and calling them racist and all of the lies and the hurt. In my opinion, it would be difficult. That's certainly up to them. And I would hope that Harry would be willing to undergo extensive counseling and treatment as a show of, sincerity and honor, and for his own well-being as well as for his family, as part of that healing process. You can't just do so much damage and then take it all back without going into counseling and treatment and being actively involved in changing yourself and being accountable and being sincere as part of that.
Matthew, do you have anything to say before we wrap this up? And huge thank you for arranging this.
Thank you.
I do have a question. I would like to ask a question about whether anybody has a view on Prince Harry potentially having committed crimes in the past in Jamaica. They are very important matters, and those crimes involve him potentially having abused somebody else. So there we are. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I've never heard of this. Have you got any thoughts on that, Samantha?
I had heard of it, and without any evidence, again, like I was saying about, the sensationalism of reading the bold font headline and villainizing someone without any evidence. I can't speak to that. If he did, I hope that there is closure for the victim and that he gets treatment and that he's accountable. But that's a big fat if. We don't have any evidence for any of that. So I also, to speak of his character, I'm not fond of him at all. And he's done a lot of damage that we've witnessed, but that's something totally unwitnessed. And I don't think it's fair to throw that into the mix unless some evidence comes forward.
I agree. And Samantha, is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion to the people watching this?
Well, thank you all for having me. I think it's been a journey for everybody, and hopefully 2023 will bring some closure and some effort and some accountability and some, something better for all concerned, especially the British royal family and the British people. I know the British people too have been shocked and hurt by this. So, let's hope that this year brings something better.
Well, huge thank you, Samantha, for being so generous with your time, and huge thank you to Jen and Matthew. And the links for Samantha and for Jen and Matthew will all be in the description box below this video. Please go and support the Steeples Times. Matthew has been with us for years now. He's a great friend of the channel, and he researches the hell out of stuff, and he writes fantastic articles for the Steeples Times. You can also find him on Twitter as well. So take care out there, wherever you are watching this in the world. And please let us know in the comments below the video what you have thought of this. And if you've got any questions for any of us, put them in the comments as well, and we'll try and get them around to them for you. So thank you for watching. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Cheers.